And good afternoon, and welcome to the Dutch Mentor. It is Friday at 12 o'clock, so very predictable. We will be doing our lunch and learn. Today's focus is about being a genuine partner. As part of the Pure Leadership Power module, we talked about our fourth component, about how to build these lasting relationships, not the kumbaya-like relationship, but really the partnering where you really start creating this synergy between two people or this oneness in order to really drive results. So the conversation today is about that. We'll open it up for some dialogue along the way. And if you have any questions, by all means, reach out to me at any time at thedutchmentor@gmail.com or schedule an appointment. We can dive deeper into this. Building genuine partnerships is often the key to your success, right? It is a relationship business when we are working in the service industry, as all of you are in this particular case, working in healthcare. So partnerships are when two or more parties come together and are willingly agree to a higher level of performance and higher standards of behavior so we can accomplish something that is purposeful and special. The key here is that two or more, right? You can have a group of 7 to 8 people, you can have, but it is always more than one. There's not much of work that we do that is truly only just for you. Even at home, there's a partnership, not just a relationship, but a partnership you need to have with your spouse. I recommend to all of you to pick up the book, The 5 Love Languages, written by Gary Kaplan. It is sold in I think 100 different languages around the world. It's one of the most popular relationship-based books. It has a lot of information in it that is truly meaningful in healthcare as well as in business. You just need to translate some of the things that he uses for relationship building or partnering in a more intimate relationship than it is for a business relationship. But nonetheless, it is extremely powerful and highly recommended to all of you. One of the key cornerstones of building a partnership is emotional intelligence. And we have talked about that in our first module when we talked about leading with confident humility, that you have to raise a level of self-awareness in order to be truly successful in helping you raise the bar, right? So it is about understanding who you are, and especially knowing who you are in stressful situations. When stress is upon us, and you can have different levels of stress that is continuous pressure, or stress where you have a changing environment, like having an emergency you have to deal with. It is understanding on how we interact and act, and how we are, going from maybe being supportive to being very directive because of angst, anxiety, of other behaviors that kind of pop out, is what we need to learn to manage, right? So self-control requires a mastery of your emotions. It's about having the ability to step away and to observe and to identify even the trigger points, so you can prevent the outburst or the undesired behavior as a servant leader. Very important part of a partnership is about looking at oneself first, right? So empathy requires the ability to understand how others perceive and feel about situations, right? It's about empathy requires knowing the perspective of others and being able to see things from the value and belief system of the other person. In our conversation, we've talked about this triangle, right? It's about, we all come from different parts of the world, either directly or indirectly, right? We might have parents who came from a different continent. They brought their culture with them. You were then exposed to their culture and your own culture here in America. Out of that, we have our based experiences that then result into actions, and those actions deliver the ultimate result. But if we want to change that, if we want to change the paradigm, we have to really get a deeper understanding of that. And the best way to start that is by trying to understand the people that you lead. How did they grow up? right? What are they comfortable with? What are the customs that they have that they have grown to see as a one way of living? And then don't impose your way. Try to meet them into their and how they like to be loved, how they like to be spoken to, or how to work and interact with them. Right. So it's really important to kind of get that sensitivity level up to a whole different ballgame. The next thing is about social expertness. Right. Social expertness is the ability to build genuine relationships with others. Social expertness allows people to be genuinely express feelings, even conflict, in a way to build rather than destroy relationships. Now, I think in our highly charged political world today, is that as soon as one says something from either the left or the right, instead of having a dialogue around that, people are starting to throw key words around. Right, they're starting to accuse people. It is really it is destroying dialogue and in concord. So in your personal life, you have to be very mindful of that, not only when discussing politics, but even more important when you start building true partnerships, right? You have to show genuine care about what others feel, think, and do. It's not right or wrong just because you don't, or because of what your opinion is. You want to get a sense of learning how to relate to them, right? So it's not about comparing, it's about relating to them. So the talent of the social expertness allows caring, support, and concern to show for fellow humans in all of the life situations. Resolving conflict without compromising core beliefs or values is an important component of social expertness. So you don't lose who you are as a person. You don't need to compromise your core values. You just have to take into account the other person, right? So you have to go through this process. It really is the word teachable, right? And mutual respect is what your aim should be inside of a relationship. As you refer back to the book, The 5 Love Languages, you will find out that there is a chapter in there where it discusses that, I am willing to do these things, but my partner is not willing to do these things. And here it is not about giving up because the other person is not receptive to that. Here it is to forge forward and for you to continue on the path of developing the partnership, hoping that in time that other person starts seeing the benefit of it and comes around. Now, there's always a point in time, especially if you look at a dysfunctional person, right? Somebody who's non-committed, overt, covert, or saboteur, that in relationship is just not possible, and then requires different types of steps to be taken. So it's the personal influence that is the ability to inspire others through example, words, and deeds. It is the ability to lead others by the way of social expertness. Personal influence is the ability to read situations and exert influence and leadership in a desired direction. Personal influence is also the ability to confront the issues that are important and are debilitating to relationships, goals, missions, and visions. Personal influence is also exhibiting the motivation of one's vision, mission, and core values and beliefs, but not imposing them. It is about sharing them with passion, but not, telling people what it is that they have to believe, right? Once you step over that line, things often go south. And then it's the last one is the mastery of vision. Mastery of vision requires that the individual has the ability to set direction and a vision guided by a strong personal philosophy. The ability to communicate and articulate with passion regarding the direction and the vision are also essential to mastery of vision. This talent serves as an inner compass that guides and influences one's actions. This inner compass also provides resilience and strength to overcome obstacles. It is the inner motivator and the guardian angel of our purpose. It is because of mastery of vision that we know who we are and what we are compelled to do in our lives. If you look at leadership itself, one of the components is to inspire. The other component is to provide vision. So mastery of vision, if you do this and articulate this well, people want to follow you. These are very important parts of your emotional intelligence. Again, this is not telling people. This is developing a picture that people can buy into, that makes believers, that gets them excited. So again, emotional intelligence is an area that you need to continue to explore for yourself. And I would encourage you to go online and take an EQ test if you have not already done so, and find out for yourself where you find where you are on the scale. And I'll tell you, I really think that I'm pretty empathetic to people, and I try to really put myself into the shoes of others. Interesting enough, when I took the test on the types of questions that they asked, I came out actually with a rather low score. And I went back to my mentor and asked, I said, why is that? And as we started digging deeper into that, the way the questions were asked, or my responses to that, had a lot to do with me as a paramedic, as a care provider. We become more callous to things that we see and do. So we have to be hyper aware that what we think is normal, what we think is just another day in the life of medicine, is not so for the recipient. So we have to be mindful of the fact that how is the person perceiving that, rather than how am I feeling about that? And by forcing that question and really thinking about it deeply, I changed my own thinking by saying, listen, every patient that I see, I don't look at it from my perspective, me getting up in the middle of the night, responding in the truck to go to your address. It's about how, it is your emergency, right? And hyperventilation and anxiety patient to me might be another one. But I need to look at why are they anxious, right? Well, it is their emergency, and I need to situate myself in front of them with that level of EQ that makes sense. That same holds true in partnering, right? It's not about you, it's really about the person in front of you. And try to see it through their perspectives, and then master their skills in order to really get to the point of elevating the partnering capabilities to deliver performance, because that's the outcome that we are desiring. So it requires a mature individualism, right? A high sense of emotional intelligence, personal strength of character. Again, you can go back to the series. Actually, I will post. I did a special taping yesterday of the 6 strategies to give a deeper insight on the online learning module that I have. I'll post it into the along with the LunchNLearn today. If you want to take a look at it, it gives you a little deeper insight to some of these areas of leadership, confidence and capacity to be a worthy partner. Right, confidence has a lot to do with it. Right, we have a real nice mix of folks in the class, but I would say by maybe even the majority of us are really introverts by nature. We're very comfortable being alone or being with family, but we are in leadership, so we have to find that balance between being an introvert and learn how to be an extrovert in the right situation. Because again, our teams depend on us of showing and leading with confidence, right? Leading with confidence, humility, and then go beyond the selfishness. And I think we've covered that in the previous slide. Value of others, win friends, influence people. Think of other people's perspective. We'll talk a lot more in the next couple of slides. Stewardship, own it, amplify it, be really good at what you do. That builds up that talent, right? That competency. If you are seen as somebody who is competent, people are more likely to follow you. Productivity, fierce resolve to deliver what you say you do. That's the commitment level, right? When you say it with no excuses, that 100/0 environment. And then here, the concord piece. And I've had several discussions with some of you around building a unified vision. As we start going into the next section called Team Operational Rhythm, we will talk a lot more about having the right people in the right roles and building that unified vision going forward. A concord between 2 people or a team is an exceptionally powerful tool to get to a whole different level of performance. It also helps set up that 4 levels of motivation by making sure you have that early buy-in, right? You get early buy-in, or you lead with context and not control. Work together at a higher level to accomplish extraordinary things. Teams like Ernest Shackleton did with his team did an extraordinary thing, right? And it is only possible when you continue to work on getting to a level of oneness. So, quick quote, and then we're going to go into a couple of examples of things on how to to win friends and influence people. So, work with your mentor, manager, coach to develop a measurable and actionable partnering plan. In the back end of this slide, as well as online, I gave you a partnering tool that can be used for all of the things as you will execute A3 thinking, problem solving, team operational rhythm, as you come into an organization and try to integrate. The tool is really set up for you to understand, who you are as a person, understand what kind of current relationship you have, and then close that gap, right? It's almost like A3 thinking, but then on a deep personal level. So here are some things I want you to keep in mind on things you can do or take into consideration as you start developing partnership with key people in the organization. So first thing is, again, looking at yourself is that become a friendlier person. We need to understand that 65% of our brain is negative, 35% positive. That's the ratio. Once you understand that and recognize that in your own life, right, how we express ourselves, you can start forcing a change. Glass half full versus glass half empty. Think about how you respond to things both in words and in thought. If you calculate it out for the majority of us, you will see that there is a 30 to 60, it's a 2/3 or 1/3 ratio, right? You want to become at least 50-50 or 60-40 positive to negative ratio. That requires work on your part. So don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Give honest and sincere appreciation with abundance, an area we all need to continue to improve upon. Arouse in the other person an eager want. Use your intrinsic values for that, right? Be genuinely interested in the other person. Go on the Gemba, see where the work gets done. Get to know them on a little bit more of a personal level. No need to go to the barbecues, but if there's a grandchild being born, that is something you can celebrate, right? You can write a little card about that is really meaningful. Interesting. Personally, I would write down smile first. Smile a lot. Smiling releases dopamine to the brain, right? It's a feel-good medicine to us. Smiling can start as you walk into the building every morning by heads up, try to make eye contact with people, and being very, verbal about saying good morning to people. Every single person you pass by. Our tendency is to have our heads down, look at the floor tiles, or walk by and get into our offices. Change that behavior. It will make you a friendlier person, and it will help accomplish things. Remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Interesting, right? Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. Talk in terms of other person's interest, and make the other person feel important, and do it sincerely. So there's nothing wrong with storytelling. But come from a point of trying to relate to somebody rather than to tell somebody, right? And that's hard, right? It is difficult stuff to do, but really important and can be very powerful as you start building these relationships and partnerships. How to win friends and influence people to your way of thinking. That's not by telling. So let's talk about it. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid one. But if you start an argument, things are changing quickly in the chemistry in our brains, and not much more can be accomplished. So try to avoid it by all means. Does not mean you should not have tough conversations, but an argument is in a different category, right? You can have respectful discord. Show respect for the other person's opinion. Never say you are wrong. We hear too much of that today in the street, especially around politics, and it's starting to spill over into other topics too. If you are wrong, admit it quickly and empathetically. There's nothing better than a leader having a well-timed apology. Take responsibility. My philosophy is that if somebody on the team broke something, that's just as my fault as it is their fault, right? So we take responsibility for it. We apologize, but we turn failures into opportunities, right? Begin in a friendly way. Now, interesting enough is that the model of having a conversation with people used to be that sandwich, right? Start with something nice, put the negative stuff in the middle, and then finish with something nice. We don't want to do that anymore, right? It is because what they will remember is the niceness on the back end, not what actually is the focus of the performance issue. What you want to do is separate your word from performance, right? Have a conversation about the worthiness, but then having a tough conversation or a tough love conversation around performance if necessary. Get the other person to say yes, yes immediately. Good luck with that, right? But that comes through vision and passion. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. So somebody reminded me a long time ago, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? You need to listen twice as much than you talk. That's not easy to do, per se. And it requires behavioral change and practice on your part. Let the other person feel that the idea is his and hers. That is very powerful. And we've talked about that in your product. Get early buy-in. Having a peer-to-peer teaching is far more powerful than any one of us as leaders to teach others below us. Try honestly to see things from the other person's perspective. Walk a mile in the shoes, right? Go to where the work is done and do the work for a little bit and see. I think the most powerful example of that I have is that I was responsible at Nyack Hospital for all of the back end, all the support services. And we really never gave much love to telephone operators. Just telephone operators. Well, it wasn't until I decided that listen, maybe I should sit with them for a day and experience what it is like to be an operator. Let me tell you something. I walked out of there with my head spinning, and how anybody can do that for 8 hours, 40 hours a week it is really amazing on what those folks do. And none of us really have, know and understand it because we don't see it or feel it, right? All we hear is the overhead announcements and our phones ring. But again, walk a mile in the shoes. If you want to write a thank you card to people, that might just be a really good place to start. Right? These are behind the scenes type people who do amazing work. Be sympathetic with other people's ideas and desires. Right? Idea generation often comes from the front line. Right? It is about respect. Appeal to a nobler motives. Dramatize your ideas and throw down a challenge. Now, if you throw down any of these last three, and then don't follow up on any of them, it might have a counter effect. Right? So you just make sure that if you put a challenge down, you follow through, you keep your commitment to it. So how to be a leader to win friends and influence people? Begin with praise and honest appreciation with abundance. Right? Give them what they want, and if it's even possible on an intrinsic level to what it is that they want specifically. Call attention to people's mistakes indirectly and never in front of somebody else, right? Because you don't want to make it, it's not about shaming people. If you are storytelling, you don't you use names, for example, of who did what. But there's a powerful lesson to be learned that can be done indirectly, right? You neutralize that, so to speak. Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. If you have never failed, you have not tried hard enough. We all have had our bumps along the way. And certainly I've had my fair share. And in our one-to-one stories or sessions, I'm trying to share some of those with you. Those are very important and very powerful learning opportunities. Right? It is not about comparing my stories with yours. It's about how can we relate to each other, right? It makes The more relatable you are as a leader, the more powerful it will be, right? The performance drives from there. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. You want to get people to buy in, you want them to suggest on how they're going to meet the ultimate goal. Let the other person save face. Praise the slightest improvements and praise every improvement with abundance. Right? Hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise. Give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. Use encouragement, make the fault seem easy to correct, and make the other person happy, but doing the things you suggest. Now, you can look at this and say, oh my God, that's like 10 soft items. Again, your goal as a leader is to provide inspiration, motivation, and a vision. That's what this is. It's not to do, not to tell, not to direct. You are a storyteller. You need to bring passion to purpose and get people to buy in, because in the end of the day, it is not your role to do all of this stuff. If you end up doing all of this, you will top out of your performance. You won't be able to get it all done. You can't get the ball across the finish line by yourself. You will force the issue. So I hope you see the value of these techniques, and all of these are very doable, and they're very much in your control. You just need to make sure you find the balance between it. There's really living life the right way. So here's the partnering plan as we wrap up our Lunch and Learn session that I posed before. So I'll leave that here. We talked about that before. If you have any examples of relationships that are not really good, and you want to work on that over the next weeks to come, it's a great opportunity to utilize this plan to make improvements with some people who are either incompatible or people you want to really have a synergistic relationship with. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll open it up for any questions. I want to stop the recording so we maintain the privacy.